Hi everybody, my name is Esha Jain and I'm a current second year family medicine resident, and I just want to share some general advice when it comes to preparing for your interview or practicing. In general, like first and foremost, make sure you have good lighting, make sure that the interviewer can see your face, and it's always nice to smile or show some emotion during your interview. Some general advice in how to practice for your interview, things that I did. I know it's super cringe. Well, it was for me, but I would record myself saying my rehearsed answers, or I would say it in the mirror, but I would generally just want to see what are my reactions, where am I taking awkward pauses, am I saying or like too much? And that way I would go back and really see if those were the ways I wanted to present my answer. Make sure you look professional, whether it's a collared shirt and a blazer. It can be unique, you can wear colors. If you're a guy, wear a tie or a bow tie. I know my brother found this cool way to tie his tie, and it was like a unique knot, and it was kind of a little bit of an introduction or like break the ice kind of piece. So look professional. Make sure your background is not too cluttery. Mine is kind of cluttery, you can kind of tell. But make sure you kind of have a clean background, and if you want to put some things on your background, make sure it's kind of personal to you. You might get asked about it, and so make sure that it's kind of unique and personal to you if it's somewhere that the interviewer can see. I want to talk about framing your interview answers. I've had the opportunity to practice mock interviews with many people, and something that I've noticed is there's a lack of framework when it comes to approaching a question. Most oftentimes, the question is going to ask you to show an example of how you display these certain characteristics, or an example of how you're a great team player and you work well in situations. And really that's what they're looking for. Can they work with you? Are you diligent? Do you get your work done? Are you not lazy? Are you a good team player? But often when people, or I would ask people certain questions, I would get just directly, these are my strengths, 1, 2, and 3. So adding a framework to your answer kind of just presents it in a more formal way. For example, what I mean is that if somebody were to be like, tell me about a time you made a mistake in your clinical practice. More often than not, what I would hear are people just jumping into the scene and what they did. For me, I like to put an intro sentence and then like a kind of a conclusion sentence before I just jump right in. So I would say something like, all of us are not immune to making mistakes. And I think the most important thing is that when we do make a mistake, what do we do about it so that we don't repeat it in the future? And then I would go into my personal example. So that is just one way I think you can framework your interview answers, and I think it presents in a much more cohesive way. Of course, there's many ways to frame your interview answer, but if you're looking for a general idea, that's kind of what I did. Another question I get asked a lot when it comes to preparing for your interview is really how to address a red flag. And so for me, when an interviewer asks me that question, I have kind of already known any of the red flags on my application. So if I have taken extra time to complete my degree, or repeated a step exam, or didn't match one cycle, I kind of already know where all my red flags are. So I think that's the first step. The second step really is to meet them head on. Don't be shy. It happened. Tell them why it happened, what happened in your life, but more importantly, what you did thereafter to show you are not that same person. So for example, I talked about the time where I didn't match, and I got asked about that during my second round of matching. And I faced that question head on, and I said, hindsight is 2020. Last year, the things that I did and I definitely improved on when it came to this year were this, this, and this. And during that time, during those short 6 months, these are all the things I did to make sure that I was a competitive applicant and that someone that deserves to be in family medicine. And I think being able to really confront what happened, but show them that I did all of this change thereafter, showed how really little that red flag was and my personality as a whole. Something that I've noticed in all the interviews, that more of them are becoming focused on having behavioral like questions. I've said this in previous posts of mine. The reason why these questions are asked, like for example, tell me about a time you did this, or tell me about a time that this happened. It's because our past behaviors are generally pretty predictive of our future behaviors. And so when they ask you that, and they really want to see how you kind of dealt with that scenario and who you are like as a person if they decide to hire you. So really just try to bank a lot of experiences and examples that show who you are in a specific scene. So tell me about a time that you were a great team player. So start kind of putting away little experiences that you've had within your medical career and outside of your medical career that showed you were a great team player.